It's not diversity in itself that makes for discord. It's when either there's a reality or, just as importantly, a perception that some people are doing better than others, and that the some and the others can be identified by belonging to a particular group.
Population is the great multiplier. It's the thing that can multiply all of our environmental woes and all of our social woes, and it can also bring prosperity. It's incredibly important we get it right for the future.
We need to have a look at the levels of inequality and unfairness that already exist in the community, because if we add more people to the mix, then you're really going to have trouble.
If we have a rising population, we need to make sure that we have appropriate infrastructure for so that we don't lose the social cohesion that we take for granted. So we need affordable access to housing, to transport, to healthcare. So we work with leaders who have a vision for making culturally, environmentally, economically and sustainable communities.
For goodness sake, you've made a mess of the world. Help us to get it right.
And Australia has some major problems at the moment, and they're just going to be magnified by a rising population.
In 40 years, with a projected population of 35 million, the face of Australia is likely to have a more ethnic Asian look, believes futurologist Ross Dawson.
We're going to look far more Asian. We really will be an Asian country, as we've got far more people who've come from that ancestry and far, far deeper ties in terms of trade and economy and culture to the rest of the Asian region.
Be careful when we're talking about population growth, because on the one hand it can be a very good thing, but on the other hand, if we bring it into a community which is already fragmented and fractured and scared, it's going to cause chaos.
While our cities are fairly pleasant places to live, that livability comes at a fairly high cost in terms of the environmental impact of our cities, and it comes at some degree of cost for particular groups within our society, especially those who are pushed out of housing markets and forced to subsist in the private rental sector, those who are located far from services and employment who have a lower quality of life as a result.
I actually think we're starting to see some signs of social cohesion breaking down, and it's really important for us to act quickly about it.
There's a lot of quite deep clefts within the Indigenous community, within various other communities, the problem with Indian students, even 30,000 kids being sort of nominated as having to move out of homes. We have a lot of social problems here and relatively little energy coming from the government to do anything about it. We need to have a look at the levels of inequality and unfairness that already exist in the community, because if we add more people to the mix, then you're really going to have trouble.
Only for Australia.
Already the stress is showing in the nation's schools. In the independent sector, Muslim schools are the fastest growing segment. But there have been angry and ugly scenes as citizens in Sydney have protested against a Muslim school in their area. This new religious intolerance masks an old problem, believes author Marion Maddox.
Religion is, in a way, the proxy for race, that it's more acceptable to say that I don't like somebody's religion than it is to say I don't like them because of their skin colour or because of their style of dress or something like that, or their accent.
Some people say that we shouldn't have more migrants, and I think they're absolutely wrong. I think the reality of Australia, it's a country which is in a growth phase. It needs migration. The Prime Minister has been talking about the impact of ageing on this community. We actually need migrants to sustain us. We also need migrants because they're part and parcel of our responsibilities on a world stage as a world power.
In Australia, as in other countries, opinion polls show that most people oppose increased immigration, but that's rarely stopped national leaders from boosting it. So how likely is it that Treasury's current projections will come true, based as they are on trends from the very top of the current surge?
I think it will take a while before the vexations associated with extra people, congestion, housing prices, access to amenity, to reach the point where a political entrepreneur can capitalise them and make the issue bite in an election context. When that occurs, I think both parties will back right off.
I think the backlash is building up, and it's nothing to do with Jeffrey Blaney or Pauline Hanson or that rubbish. It's all about this country's carrying capacity. And people know in their bones that we're a very different proposition from the continent of North America. They know we're environmentally vulnerable, and I think they're very, very sceptical about this consensus business view, this boardroom view, that, Treasurer, we've got to build a population.
Population growth is an issue that will dramatically affect each and every Australian, and every citizen has a stake in the outcome of a debate that's only just beginning. And the voice of Australia's original people should be heard in that debate, believes Aboriginal author Alexis Wright.
If you look around, anywhere in this country, you see rivers that are dying, country that is dying, and because the country hasn't been respected or treated well, and the people who have the knowledge, the Indigenous people, the elders who've been here, for tens of thousands of years and have looked after this country, haven't been consulted, and in fact are ignored.
Let's open our minds and say, well, if for whatever reason we needed to move to 35 million people or even beyond by the end of the 21st century for military reasons, strategic reasons, lifestyle reasons, how would you do it? What is the best way to do that and mitigate the impact on the environment? And I think that's where the debate needs to be. See how things are possible rather than putting up a blanket wall and saying, no, nothing is possible.
The average resident of an Australian city can see many of the problems, can see those that aren't being fixed, and we have a very articulate population that's prepared to get out there and start debates when they need to happen.